So Nintendo just revealed the rest of the tracks in Wave 4 of the Mario Kart 8 Deluxe Booster Course Pass, and this wave is shaping up to be absolutely incredible. The track selection is overall pretty solid, and the graphics have somehow improved even more from Wave 3, which already looked absolutely gorgeous. I have to say, each wave of this DLC is getting me more and more excited for the next one, given how much each improves upon the last. In this video, I'm going to be breaking down the recent trailer, as well as talking about some details that you might have missed in some of these tracks. So with all that out of the way, let's roll the intro and get into my breakdown of the trailer for Wave 4 of the Mario Kart 8 Deluxe Booster Course Pass. First off, we have Tour Singapore Speedway, and I have to say the lighting on this track looks absolutely phenomenal. The nighttime aesthetic and neon lights go perfectly together, and there are a few more objects being introduced to the game in this course as well. Right off the bat, in the first two shots we get to see of this course, there's a Goomba floating in an inner tube, something that we haven't seen in Mario Kart 8 before, but is actually an enemy in Super Mario 3D World. Also in the second shot of this track, we get to see a new form of boost ring. However, it seems like it functions the exact same way as the others in the game, and this is only an aesthetic change. There are also these new geysers that come out from the lake, and they look like they'll function similarly to the water that comes out of the manhole covers in New York Minute, meaning that you'll probably be able to trick off of them. For a split second, we also get to see new conveyor belts. However, this once again, similar to the boost ring, looks like a reskin of the ones already in the base Mario Kart 8, as these did appear in Mario Kart 8's Rainbow Road. While I haven't played this course and tour myself, I've heard great things about it, and gameplay-wise from this trailer, it looks like it'll be super fun to race on. I'm also really looking forward to hearing the full version of this track's music, because it had such a great theme back in Mario Kart Tour, and it seems like it's gotten even better here with what we've heard of it from the trailer. Next up, we had another city track from Mario Kart Tour, Tour Bangkok Rush. Now, we only got to see 7 seconds of this course, so I wasn't able to find any new objects being added to the game with this track. However, the course itself looks pretty good. While there are definitely a few low poly areas that you can tell were ripped straight from Tour, similar to a lot of the other city tracks, the textures on this course look really solid, especially those for the water and the wet pavement. I vaguely remember playing one of the iterations of this track in Tour at one point, and I remember the gameplay being pretty solid, so I'm looking forward to being able to play it in 8 Deluxe. And then we have probably the most exciting course of this wave, one that I predicted all the way back in my What Will Mario Kart 9 Be video. We have Wii DK Summit. Now, this track seems to be following the Mario Kart Tour version of this course almost identically, which didn't have many changes from the original Wii version. The only real changes of note are that the curvature of some of the turns has been slightly changed, and there are now more bumps that you can trick off of, which in my opinion is a good thing. I think this is one of the best designed tracks in Mario Kart history, as I've said on the channel before, and I wouldn't want there to be too many changes made to it. Now, of course, this isn't identical to the Mario Kart Tour version of the course, because it's definitely gotten quite a visual glow up, with now the snow texture being extremely detailed and even having marks from previous racers driving on it. As for new objects being added to the game, we now have the return of the snowboarding Shy Guys who were from Mario Kart Wii, who go off the half pipes that were introduced to Mario Kart 8 Deluxe in the last DLC wave. Overall, I am really excited to be able to play on this course, not only because the visuals are so good, but just because gameplay-wise, this is such a phenomenal track. Now, the next course is actually a first for the Booster Course Pass, given that it is the third city track in a single wave, whereas the previous waves only had 2. And that course is Tour Amsterdam Drift. This is a pretty recent city track in Mario Kart Tour, and its design is somewhat similar to Daisy Hills from Mario Kart 7. And while I once again haven't played this course in Mario Kart Tour, I have watched a little bit of gameplay of the course online, and it seems like it has some pretty solid gameplay, which is good, especially given that this is one of the tracks that is falling behind graphically in Wave 4 of the DLC. Now, I'm not saying it necessarily looks bad, it's miles ahead of the Wave 1 tracks and a lot of the Wave 2 tracks as well. It just doesn't really come up to the standard that the Wave 3 tracks and some of the other Wave 4 tracks have set. One thing visually that I do absolutely love about this course, however, is that the tulips look so vibrant. It really really makes you feel like you're in the middle of a flower field in spring. Now, it doesn't look like there were any new objects added to the game in this course, however, there are piranha plants lining the sides of some of the track, as well as a Monty Mole that we can see in one of the portions of Dirt Road. Even though the graphics aren't the best in the wave, I still think this course is really solid, especially given that the gameplay looks incredibly promising. But then next up we have the course whose graphics are probably the best in the wave, which is GBA Riverside Park. This track legitimately looks exactly how I would have pictured it returning in the original Mario Kart 8. The grass, road, and rock textures look like they would fit in perfectly with the rest of the base game, and the rock texture specifically I feel like could fit in with one of the past DLC courses, Mushroom Gorge. While Mushroom Gorge was definitely one of the more impressive Wave 2 courses graphically, it definitely did have some shortcomings, one of which was the rock texture that was extremely prominent around the course. As it stands right now, it's just a flat gray texture, and I think that course would overall benefit a lot graphically from this rock texture from Riverside Park being brought over to it. The grass and road textures, as I've already mentioned, are phenomenal as well. However, I don't really think those would fit very well with the rest of the DLC courses, so I don't think those should be added to any of those. Now, with that tangent out of the way, let's talk about this actual course itself. My final note on graphics is that the water in the actual river of Riverside Park looks very good as well, especially with it reflecting the sunset that's happening in the background. As for new objects coming to the game, we actually have an extremely prominent one, which is the Patooey from the new Super Mario Bros. Series, which has never appeared in a Mario Kart game before. What's especially cool about this is that you're able to hit the Patooey with a projectile, such as a shell, in order to make them spit out whatever item they were blowing above them, which will then land slightly in front of you. And depending on what kind of item it is, you can either use it or it'll become an obstacle for other racers. This also adds a little bit more strategy to the game, as you're able to see whatever item the Patooey is blowing above it, and then you can plan accordingly whether you want to hit the Patooey with a projectile or not. I think this has the potential to add a lot of depth to the gameplay of this course, and so does the layout itself, because there has literally been depth added to the course given that the original GBA version was entirely flat. The GBA remakes and Mario Kart 8, in my opinion, are some of the most impressive remakes in the Mario Kart series, and this is no different. There are now not only the Patooeys, but there are also ramps scattered throughout the course, as well as a cave which ends in a waterfall that you drive through. Even though I probably would have preferred Riverside Park to be remade instead of Lakeside Park in this style, because it was one of my favorites back in Super Circuit, I think this is probably one of my most anticipated tracks of the entire DLC. Unlike our next course, which is honestly a little bit of a letdown, DS Mario Circuit. Now, don't get me wrong, I loved this course back in Mario Kart DS, and I think it is a great Mario circuit. But the fact that we already have 3 Mario circuits in the game, and that there were so many great DS tracks that could have been added instead, is kind of disappointing to me. And the graphics don't exactly make up for it either, given that this is probably the least graphically impressive course in this entire wave. Almost every texture is just a flat color ported straight from Mario Kart Tour, and the only thing that really looks somewhat graphically impressive in this course is the castle in the middle of it, which honestly I think looks pretty darn good. There are new trees being added to the game in this course, however, which look very similar to the ones from Mario 64. And the extended footage that Nintendo released of the course, which I got from GameXplain, shows that there's now a giant wiggler that's been added to the middle of the track, which I think will make for a pretty cool obstacle. While I am still somewhat disappointed that this course did take up a track slot in the DLC, I think the gameplay will still be pretty solid, and I am still looking forward to playing it when it comes out with the rest of Wave 4. And the final course that was announced in this trailer, not counting Yoshi's Island, since we already knew about that course from the Nintendo Direct, is GCN Waluigi Stadium, which is in contention with GBA Riverside Park, in my opinion, to be the best looking course graphically in this wave. And gameplay wise, it seems like it's gotten a huge number of changes. First off, the ground now looks wet as if it's been rained on, meaning that this track might now have slippery physics. And the wet dirt looks so good graphically. 2 of the mechanical piranha plants have now also been turned to be diagonal, which I think is a pretty cool change as it spices up the gameplay a bit. However, there is still one horizontal one in the background if you look closely. But possibly the biggest change gameplay-wise to this course is that there's now an entire new route that's an anti-gravity after one of the half-pipe turns. It's unclear how you're supposed to get up to this top route, but it looks like it will be super fun to drive on, because the anti-gravity will add even more to the chaos of this track, and the spin boosters on it could make it a faster route than the normal ground level one. I am so excited to be able to play this track in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. While I definitely would have preferred Wario Kart Coliseum because I feel like it was a much better course back in Mario Kart Double Dash. I think what Nintendo has done with Waluigi Stadium has made it pretty much just as good as Wario Coliseum, and I overall just cannot wait to get to driving on this course. And the only other thing that we got to see in this trailer was the same gameplay that we saw in the Nintendo Direct of the Yoshi's Island course, which I will say looks phenomenal. And if you want to hear my entire thoughts on this course, make sure to go watch my Direct breakdown. If you liked the video, then why don't you press the like button? If you got this far in the video, you probably did like it. And if you want to see more content on Wave 4 and the future waves of Mario Kart 8 Deluxe's Booster Course Pass, such as me ranking the Wave 4 tracks when they come out, make sure to subscribe so then you get notified whenever I release those videos. With all that out of the way, thank you all for watching. I'm Jacob with the Game Block, signing off.